Well, I did tell you before the season that Kyle Busch was going to be pretty darn good. And today so far he proved it. He proved it in speed weeks. Kyle Busch at the scheduled distance has been the leader of both points races this year. So a lot to talk about in this one. First off, I want to ask you a couple questions. One, how's the mic? I want to make sure that I'm good. I don't want to be blowing your ears out. Also, don't want to be too quiet. And also, I want to ask if you can please like the stream and sub if you're new. We're going to be going through everything today. We have the entire line or finishing grid as well as point by point in the race. And then once we get through a bit of it, we're going to up top put the finishing results up there so we don't have to read through them. You guys can see them as it goes. Awesome. We are good. Awesome. And we have almost 300 in here already after only being live for about a minute. So that is good stuff all around. I want to get to those super chats before we jump into anything because you guys, if you are willing to pay money, you deserve to be heard. And I don't want to miss any. I've not been doing too great at that. Before we do that, even though I will let you know, I am not going live after the Xfinity race. I don't even know if I have Fox Sports 2. So I'm going to be digging around there, and it's going to be really late. I hadn't planned on a race being after. I thought it was going to be, at some point, maybe before or something. So no post-race after Xfinity. We will for the Las Vegas weekend, weather being helpful with us. But let's go into these super chats and then the finishing order really quick. So an $8 super chat from Mark Moore. He says, because I'm not going to Cheddar's tomorrow. I forgot if what their deal is or if like there's something exactly they do when Kyle Busch wins. But I mean, if they're doing that, I live like half a mile from a Cheddar, so I could probably walk there for dinner tomorrow night. I know my girlfriend will be happy with that because she likes Cheddars. I will get my thoughts in the commentary in a moment. We'll talk about that as we talk about the race review. Marky Mark, thank you for the 2. Payne is a Blaney fan once again. Trust me, my brother's a Blaney fan, so I hear you on that one. And then Hunter, thank you for the 2. Put $2 on Kyle Busch to win, made 22 back. Life is good. Awesome. Good stuff all around. Now, I'm going to say, while I did not pick Kyle Busch for this race, I did say before the season that Kyle Busch was going to have one of those really good seasons. Now, it's very, very early. And so, I can't say that he is for sure just because, it is so early. But he's been really, really good so far. And I predicted 3 to 6 wins this year, leaning more towards the 6 end. And while this is still very early, it does help the earlier he gets these wins to prove me right. But I do think no matter what, even if he doesn't hit those marks, he's going to have a very good year. And I think he's still going to be a championship contender. Thank you, Matt. I believe that's for the £5. Woohoo! A Kyle win, number 8, watching from England. Well, thank you, 1, for watching the race, and 2, for watching us afterwards. I hope I got that right. Like I always say, I was a product of the American school system, so they didn't teach us much outside of our country. So I apologize if I get anything wrong. Also, let's go through some of these points of the race. First off, for the thumbnail, awesome thumbnail picture. Credit to Luis Torres or at the LT Files on Twitter. Be sure to drop him a follow if you're on Twitter. I believe has some awesome content. I believe he's also on YouTube. I think we might have had him on or have talked to him before. But awesome stuff there and a great thumbnail. The race was 3 hours, 8 minutes, and 4 seconds long. 13 drivers led today with 28 lead changes, 8 cautions on the day. And like I said, I'll get into the stuff in a moment about my thoughts in the commentary, but I'll just say this. I either next year or the rest of this year, I'm going to go to every Fox race or listen on MRN and PRN because the energy just isn't there. Be sure to lick the like button, by the way, also, as we're well over 400 watching. You guys are doing great. I love seeing everybody in here. Well, let's get into the finishing order of this race. 36 cars were entered into it, and here's what we got. The winner, Kyle Busch in the 8 car, and that Lucas car I love the simplicity of it. I love the big logos on it. It very much was reminiscent of 90s and 2000s scheme with the new flair of the numbers forward. It did, in my opinion, the scheme was everything right. And I'm glad that a good-looking car went to victory lane. With the best car of the day went to victory lane. And honestly, the best driver out there today went to victory. Second, with a great hard charge at the end, was Chase Elliott. He had been in the back half of the top 10 for a lot of the day, had some good speed, but as the long run went on, he was able to outlast those guys in the top 5 and 10, get up to second. And for a brief moment, I was honestly thinking that we were going to be looking at Chase Elliott running him down, because Elliott showed some very good speed at the end, the kind of speed he had last year before the incident with Larson. In third place was Ross Chastain. His teammate Daniel Suarez was fourth. Fifth was Kevin Harvick. Sixth, Denny Hamlin. Brad Keselowski, even getting into the wall towards the end there, had a great run in seventh, showing a lot of improvement from RFK. Alex Bowman got an eighth place run, led some laps early. Looking pretty good with Blake Harris so far, only 2 races in. So that team is one to be watching as well. Kyle Busch's teammate Austin Dillon in ninth. My pick for this race, Joey Logano, rounds out the top 10. Then you got Martin Truex Jr., had some issues he ran into, some self-inflicted, some just getting mired in the pack, finishes 11th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. backs up his Daytona 500 victory with a 12th place run after an eventful first lap and day overall. Chris Buescher with a 13th place run. And I want to give a shout out here to Corey LaJoie in that Spire number 7 car, finishing 14th, backing up a 16th place run at Daytona. I do not expect Corey LaJoie to be up there running in 10, 12, 13 weeks for a playoff spot. I don't expect that right now. I don't know that this is something with a super speedway race and then one intermediate track race that is nothing like the rest of the schedule, if this is something to be stable over time. But it should be said that he was going through the pack with speed, not strategy for the most part, to get up there, and was running top 10 in a lot of that race. Marky Mark for 2. Press F to remember Auto Club. Well, I'll put it in there right now. And we'll talk about that also in a bit. Alex, thank you for the 10. Didn't hear the full race. I was at my favorite restaurant. They had a TV on Fox. Saw that weird restart crash, but couldn't hear what they were saying. Shout out to Romo's Pizza. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's finish out the running order of this race. Harrison Burton, a solid 15th place run, and Ty Gibbs survives to a 16th place run. Those 2 young drivers just need solid runs, getting the experience still, and so today, in my opinion, is a win for both of them. Then you got the 2 front row cars, Todd Gilliland in 17th, and Michael McDowell staying out, fell back to 18th, even with, I believe they said he pitted, but it looked like he didn't have fresh tires. I don't know how it went. Fox wasn't very clear. Then 19th was Eric Jones, and rounding out the lead lap after struggling all day, Chase Briscoe. I know that a lot of people are picking Briscoe to make the playoffs after his 6-week good run last year. I don't see it, and especially with a run like this on an intermediate. I have to admit that if this kind of stuff keeps up the next 5 or 6 weeks, my fears about if that 14 team is viable for a playoff spot may be realized. I hope not, because I like Briscoe. But right now, not a good showing by the 14 team. Justin Haley finishes a lap down in 21st. Right behind him was Noah Gragson. J.J. Yaley with a 23rd place run in the Rick Ware car, a lap down. And then the last car lap down, 24th position, B.J. McLeod. Good run on his part. William Byron's pretty solid run for the day. Falls apart at the end. Finishes 2 laps down in the 25th position. Blaney finishes 26th, -4. Then you got in 27th, Cody Ware, -5. Austin Cindric, -6. And then Kyle Larson rounds out those who were still running at the end in -15 and 29. Now, the rest of these guys were out of the race. So 30th place, Bubba Wallace, overheated late. Then you have Ty Dillon late in the race, finishing 31st. Christopher Bell finishes 32nd. Reese 33rd. Reddick 34th. And Almirola 35th. All of them caught up in that big restart crash we'll talk about in a moment. And then last, finishing out the field, AJ Allmendinger after being pretty solid with speed. Looking in the chat right now, people asking what happened to Byron. I believe was he having engine issues? I'm not sure. Um, but there's that. Napa Racing Fan leaves in the chat, and this is really important to look at. Washington versus Stanford is on FS1 tonight, meaning that Xfinity Auto Club is on FS2, starting at about 40 minutes, give or take. I, again, won't be doing a stream after that. But one thing I will be doing is popping up top here the finishing order. That way we don't have to read through it the rest of the night. Unofficial results at the moment. We're not going to go through to inspection. But this is where they finished tonight. Let me edit that really quick. I didn't realize that so looking good when it comes to the finishing order of this race. Up top, we got some croissants in the chat from Napa Racing Fan 927. Well, let's look through this race and see what we got. To start out with, again, I'm not going to try and be a negative Nancy about too awful much. I just want to try and be realistic about this. They said that there was a sellout. I'm not questioning that they sold all the seats, but that place was half empty. Now, we can blame the weather. We can do whatever. But that race was, the stands had very full parts and very patchy parts. But it kind of reinforces what a lot of people had said when it came to the new layout coming out is, if these fans would have come in droves supporting it, like they're saying on social media, then maybe this wouldn't be happening to this track. I think that's something that that is a very valid point to bring up. But, still relatively solid crowd. I would generously say 65 to 70% full, though. Depending on some of the aerial shots you look at, maybe 50. I mean, it was not a sellout the way last year's was really full. But going to the racing itself, Stenhouse was back to form early on lap 1. He was a damn ping pong ball, jumping back and forth off everything. Then you had, of course, lap 13, Kyle Larson with engine issues. He went behind the wall, went 16 down, only made up one of those laps the rest of the day. So there really wasn't too much to talk about on his end after that. They had the comp caution. Brad Keselowski spun. And wow. And I'll get to that in one moment. But he was able to salvage that. Thank you to my mother for the $50 super chat. I will see you Tuesday, I believe. Same kind of way we did it last week, I think. Having on-air family meetings, everybody. Thank you, Rowdy18_diecast for the 2 KFB, baby. Yeah, I can tell by your profile pic you're a Kyle Busch fan. I was at that race, by the way. But finishing out stage 1, Ross Chastain got the victory in it, followed by Blaney, Suarez, Bowman, Hamlin, Byron, Logano, Harvick, Truex, Elliott. And this is really important for Blaney especially, and Byron. They got stage points, helped mitigate that bad run they had towards the end of the day. So the points issue won't be too big on their part with it. But then we go to stage 2. The first real incident that happened in that one is AJ Allmendinger crash in the inside wall. And this is where we will get into the problems. Oh, yeah, and Wednesday. And Wednesday, meet my mom and dad for sushi. Gonna be fun. I love sushi. But let's get to the AJ Allmendinger issue, because this is where we will start looking at the broadcast itself. I personally thought this was about an 8 or 9 out of 10 race. Really solid race overall. I thought that there was a good amount of passing, good amount of strategy, coming and going. The tire fall off was perfect for an old track like that. And the track itself reminded me a lot of ways, at least in look, bumpiness, how it was affecting the drivers in the car. It reminded me in a lot of ways of pre-repaved Charlotte back in like 2004 and 5, which I love. I absolutely love that. But when AJ Allmendinger had that issue, they're like, oh, we got a car, there's a car spinning on the backstretch. And then there was like a 10-second delay, and they showed a clear replay of it because the cars were already slowing down in the original shot. And it just was so poorly handled, in my opinion. The fact that when it happened, the only one to say anything was Clint Boyer going, AJ Allmendinger. Like, that's it? You got a car going head first into the inside wall, close to the area that it was like starting to have that bend, which would have been really, really bad. And the worst you can say is AJ Allmendinger. Come on. Like, say what you want about NBC, but they have that enthusiasm. They're into it. And that's why, earlier this week when I had said that I honestly don't think the rest of the booth's problem is much, total, is what like that one person is. Again, if you're the lead commentator like Mike Joy is, with that much experience and history in the sport, it is up to you to lead your two more inexperienced broadcasters. It's up to you to take control of the situation. And that's something I don't see Mike Joy doing like 5 or so years ago. Again, he's still a very good commentator. But, like, I personally like NBC. I like the enthusiasm. I like old school Darrell Waltrip of, an old school Larry Mack. Raise that octave. If there's a car careening at a wall at 170 miles an hour and it full, there's no way he's saving it. That's exciting. Maybe not in a good way, but still is exciting to see. That is something major that's going to affect the race, because AJ Allmendinger was a top 10 to 15 guy, and based on the coming and going of long runs, AJ Allmendinger could have been somebody like we saw with that 16 car at Michigan last year. They could be a top 5 car. So there's a lot that you could talk about. And yes, My Life by Jeffrey, Danica is next. And as much as I thought Danica was pretty good at times on TV with IndyCar, the last couple showings have not been good. And I am very nervous about what that's going to entail. But it's just, there's zero life in these Fox broadcasts. And yes, Fox went overboard with the goofy, but I feel like Fox saw that, because I feel like Fox has tried changing things to help what we say. Like, and I'm not just saying me, I'm saying all of you in the chat, Twitter, Facebook, anyone, because Fox had been going way too, kind of weird with it, I would say. But I feel like they went too far. And the thing is, you can be very calm with a broadcast and still be very engaging. Like, look at Jim Nantz, for instance, on CBS. Him commentating golf, I am not somebody who's going to sit down and watch golf. It's just not my thing. I tried it. I respect people that do. I know people in my family watch golf. And I know there's more intricacies about the game than what I understand. But, when I listen to Jim Nantz talk about it, I can tell, though, like, do it. There's an atmosphere he's trying to go for. When Jim Nantz commentates football, for instance, he can raise the octave a little bit, but he's very much, in a lot of ways, like a Ken Squire type. But Ken Squire was not one to yell. But if you're going to have that kind of low-key broadcast, you got to at least be informative with it. And they were informative at times. It's just, there's that balance that I feel like Fox has been searching for about the last 6 or 7 years. And I don't know. It's just, there's something, it's almost like kind of the soul of the broadcast isn't there. And it's sad for me to say, because I've loved Fox Sports since I was a kid doing their broadcast till about 2016, 17. And it just kind of feels like it's just sort of kind of just uttered out. And I hope they fix it up, because they're going to be back. I hope that when Mike Joy does retire, that there's a big shakeup. I personally think that a little fine-tuning and Adam Alexander would be good. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that. But I feel like that there are things Fox can do. But NASCAR guy, I'll say, like, I kind of agree with you on this. I think Tony Stewart might have been the best in the booth this weekend, the most inexperienced. I honestly haven't thought Boyer is that bad. He's not. I don't know. There's just a little difference. But enough about the broadcast. We're going to talk about that every week. I will say this. I may go, like I said, to every Fox race this year and next year, or listen to MRN like some of my friends have been doing, because that might be the only way to go at this point. But let's go back into the race here. We got through, to the start of stage 2. During that caution with AJ Allmendinger that we talked about, Martin Truex Jr. got some major damage in the pits. His left front flew off. And I'll admit, as somebody watching who's, watched for a while, and I was thinking, man, that might be done. That thing might be toast. You know, he'll be lucky to get a lead lap finish out of this thing. But like I said earlier, almost got a top 10, was battling Joey Logano for a top 10 at the end of that race, and was very solid. Excuse me, my bad. But then after that, you know, you have Corey LaJoie spinning. He kind of got into Reddick. There was like basically 3 cars kind of got together, and it ended up spinning the 7. It was like the 7 was a magnet for trouble today, which was really odd to see, because I think this is probably one of the best overall races that Corey LaJoie has run in a good while. But then, you know, after that, you have the restart wreck, where there's just a big bunch up of, you know, kind of through the pack, caused a big accordion stack up. And I'll read off who was collected in that. Now, I might be off here or there. Fox, I think, put it up, but I was, you know, writing it as it went. You had Bell, Reddick, Keselowski. Almirola got some air in that wreck. Like, I believe 2 or 3 of his wheels were up in the air as he got hit the side of a car. But then after that, you got Ty Dillon, Ryan Preece. I'm still trying to remember. It's Preece in the 41, not Cole Custer. So I apologize if I get that wrong at times. Ryan Blaney and Justin Haley. It might have been 1 or 2 others. But they were in that. And then to end the stage, Chastain sweeps the stages. Kyle Busch 2nd. Joey Logano 3rd. Kevin Harvick 4th. Suarez 5th. 6th, Denny Hamlin. 7th, Chase Elliott. Alex Bowman, solid again in 8th. Then 9th, Austin Dillon. Brad Keselowski for top 10. Looking at that super chat there from Napa Racing Fan 927. Imagine Fox had Marty Reed instead of Mike Joy. Yeah, Marty towards the end of his ESPN tenure was rough. Pretty rough. By the way, be sure to like the stream, and if you're new, be sure to subscribe. We got plenty of stuff through the week. Some pretty fun video topics this week. NASCAR Weekly Podcast on this channel Wednesday night. Going to be me, Eric Estep, Danny B Talks, and Black Flags Matter. Going to be a lot of fun. A lot to go over about possibly what's looking to be the final race at Auto Club at the big 2-mile facility, as well as looking forward to a triple header weekend at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And I hope that you guys remember that weekend as well. Kyle Busch will be doing a triple header at his home track. It feels like the reins have been taken off of him, and that should scare the rest of the drivers in all 3 series. The floodgate, I think that, like Andrew here says, does this open the floodgates for Kyle and wins more? Yeah, I think it does open the floodgates. Fred Dog 81, Boyer and Chastain have beef. Exchange was awkward. I think that Chastain was kind of giving him some shit overall. I don't think there's something back and forth, but it was pretty funny. And if they do have beef, I hope they have Boyer call into his car like every race this year just to keep it going. Because I think that stuff's fun. Honestly, I think it's really fun. But let's go into the final stage here. With 62 to go, you had Austin Cindric getting to Buescher and then Gilliland with contact, pretty much ending the day for Cindric. It got him into the wall. He had to pit, was puttering around for a bit, and he really, he didn't have any chance of recovering since it was for the most part long runs. Really quick, looking in the chat, Austin says, what do you want to see happen with Auto Club realistically? Realistically, especially with the sale of that land, you gotta make the short track at this point. I wish that we didn't have to, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But I do think it's the right move as much as people don't like it. Tyler, thank you for the 5. Imagine Mike Joy, Larry Mack, and Jamie Mack. Mike and the Max. I like that already. I think that would be a really good booth because Jamie McMurray has shown chemistry with Mike Joy before. The two of them have that kind of calm approach to it. Mike with the commentary portion, McMurray with the driver portion, and then you got Larry Mack keeping the energy up. I honestly, I really like that idea, and I don't think Larry Mack has lost a beat personally. He belongs in the booth more than anybody else in NASCAR right now, and it's a crying shame that they don't have him up there. But let's get through the rest of the race, and we'll talk about the bigger picture overall. After that, Ty Dillon was in the wall a lap later, and he was puttering around on the bottom. almost to a full stop on the apron through 1 and 2, so they had to call the caution. Gives Martin Truex Jr. the free pass to get him back on the lead lap, which was pretty big because he had like I said, a really, really good recovery on that race. But with 55 to go, you have this insane restart that turns into a giant battle between Logano, Chastain, and Tyler Reddick, Kyle Busch. My God, this is going to be tough for me for the first couple weeks. Bear with me. I've never had to do live stream. I've never done live streams after races to start the year. So it's going to be, I'm going to make mistakes. I apologize in advance. But those three had this great fight for the lead. At one point, I think they were almost 4 wide for the lead. Stuff that all of us are going to miss about this layout of Auto Club. But it really became a battle between the 1 and the 8. Kyle Busch for about 20 laps just dogging Chastain, staying right on his bumper. And it was really fun to watch, too. Then with about 35 to go, Busch gets past Chastain, but they're pretty even. Logano starts the wave of pit stops that would be the race-ending pit stops. And as they go down on pit road with 34 to go, Chastain just completely outbrakes Busch in there, pulls up right beside him. I thought he was speeding at first, but he was just aggressive as all hell. And it was really fun to watch the cat and mouse game between the two of them. But as it cycles out, Kyle Busch gets ahead of the 1. Chase Elliott gets ahead of the 22. Logano starts to fall back. And now it's Elliott that's on the big charge. And I'm thinking at this point, like I said earlier, oh my God, Elliott's going to win this race. What a story that would be after what happened last year. But doesn't happen. And there's only really a couple points to end this run as Kyle Busch just had a vice grip on the lead. Bubba Wallace, he overheated, was out with 27 to go, which relegated him to a 30th place finish. And then I will get that super chat in a moment. And then Michael McDowell stayed out with 20 to go, though. He gets passed, ends up falling way back to about 18th. And then 6 to go, Brad in the wall. But in the end, Kyle Busch gets the victory. Hey, NASCAR All Out. I love that channel, your channel, I should say. And if you guys haven't subbed to NASCAR All Out, great stuff every week. Great channel. If you want to learn about the past of NASCAR, and especially, great channel to sub to. But you bring up a good point. The first stage of the broadcast didn't show leader intervals, and it made it hard as hell to follow. Again, the commentary side is off. The graphics side is off. They have the freaking cartoons that, at least for Xfinity and trucks, have been, made. They keep the real drivers, keep that going in Cup. It's just overall, it's very much amateur hour. And it's sad to see because Fox had such great productions, even with a bit of a goofier tone to it in the 2000s and 2010s. Dislocation, thank you for the 10. W race, but sadly, it's going away. However, we need more short tracks. So as sad as it is to say goodbye to this track, it is very necessary for the short track community. Okay, let's get into the big elephant in the room about this whole deal, man. The Auto Club short track versus the 2-mile Auto Club. I know we're over 30 minutes in. Again, finishing lineup, unofficial at the moment in case inspection changes anything. But that will be up top, as well as the podcast Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 Central. But let's get into it. Like I said, the big issue that everyone is going to be talking about this week, everyone's going to probably be talking about next year and possibly 2025, depending on if there is no racing in, around Fontana at all, depending on the track. Let's get into it. I agree. I see some in the chat saying we don't. I think we need more short tracks. The short tracks we have are way too close together. Slap made a really good point about that, and geographically it makes sense. When you look at the short tracks in NASCAR at the moment, there are 4 short tracks in NASCAR at the moment. Bristol, Martinsville, Richmond, North Wilkesboro. And they're all in one little circle. One little circle, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, all near each other. They're all sharing the same fans. And, those fans are very loyal fans. But it's a lot to ask to go to 6 races. I've went to as many as 14, 15 races in a season, including speed weeks in that, and it drains you. And I know that it's first world problems to talk about going to NASCAR races training you, but when you're in the sun, especially you go the whole weekend, if you're in the sun for 10 to 20 hours a weekend, and sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, in a row, that stuff does physically drain anyone. And I'm a marathon runner, and that drained me. So I understand people not wanting to go to it, or not go to all of them. So the Fontana approach here, you have the sense of a different fan base. You have people that can flock on the West Coast to a short track, a big name short track that NASCAR owns. That's the big one. NASCAR owns this track. So they're not going to give this thing away. They're not going to give its date away. They're not going to give it to somebody, like a short track around there. Now, I see people talking about Irwindale, I think, and Kern, but I think Irwindale was sold or something happened with that one. I keep seeing that. Half people tell me this and that. I am not in tune too much with the California short track scene, unfortunately. But there's a few ways to look at it. NASCAR owns it, so we'll talk about that. That we said pretty much all we have to say on that. After that, you have the land that people, especially and I would not be shocked whatsoever if local governments were pressuring NASCAR to get rid of the land, because let's be real, one race weekend a year, and then maybe like commercial shoots, videos, whatever. That's not going to be as big to the community as a bunch of new factories that people can work at. That's the unfortunate truth about it. I hate that that's the case. Sonoma is like a lot further away, Daniel. Like I didn't forget Sonoma, but it's not an oval. We're talking about, if we're going to talk about the oval scene, all that stuff. But then you also have to look at the fact that Auto Club is going to be in need of a repave. Like if it was kept the way that it was, Auto Club would be repaved probably by 2026, 2027, because the weepers were a big problem. And I will say attaboy to NASCAR and the workers at the track for keeping that under control. The weepers would only become a bigger problem. On top of that, the repave itself, fresh asphalt, would be not really conductive to great racing, just because when you look at Michigan, for instance, a sister track, you didn't really have that. You really objectively have not had that much good racing at the repaved Michigan. I loved that race that Dale Jr. won, but if you were watching it as an objective fan, not somebody who was having fun like I was that day for the racing, you can't really say that it was good racing. Passing was possible, but it was not like Auto Club is now. The Auto Club you see now would not return for 10 to 15 years. And fans weren't returning to this race. Yeah, they sold 80 to 100% of the tickets. I get that. But that place looked half full, empty, however you want to look at it. Maybe a little more than half full. But it was not very great in the grandstands. People weren't showing up before this became an issue. And so I don't think it would survive the way that people think it would. And I think, personally, if they were going to keep a 2-mile Auto Club Speedway, it would have ended up being a super speedway, because that's the way it seems that NASCAR is kind of going. It's unfortunate, because I would love to keep Auto Club the way it is, or repave parts of it. Maybe have like one lane kind of, as a grip strip almost, kind of similar to what Pocono ended up having for a couple years before it's repaved. But it was inevitable that this track is so worn down over time that you're gonna have to repave it, or it's gonna fall apart and we're gonna have a Daytona pothole incident again, or weepers are gonna be so bad we can't race even though there's no rain on a day. That's just how these things would go. And I get a lot of people also like, well, it's great for IndyCar. Well, IndyCar hasn't been there for what, almost a decade now? Like, if they were going to come and save the track, they would have done it by now. Like, I get that fans will miss it. And I'm going to miss it too, because it is in my top probably 7 to 10 tracks in NASCAR. And that's ones they currently race and have raced. But it's just everything lined up against this track at the same time. And I don't think that it's gonna. It would have been salvageable long term. Fans are very quick nowadays with their money to take it elsewhere, and I don't think that they would be as patient as people think they would when even a couple years ago, pre-pandemic, the fans weren't showing up. They weren't showing up, and fans really weren't showing up other than last year until they heard that, their track was in jeopardy or it had been 2 years since the last one. So I don't know what to say really more than that. I'm not going to say it doesn't suck. And I feel so bad for people that actually are there for that race. As somebody whose track has been taken away in Chicagoland. But, just as I have to be realistic with that in the sense that NASCAR is going to try and move to different things or that the area around it will move around it, I don't like it, but you have to be realistic on it, and that's what sucks. It does suck. I'll move the super chat here from Red Mazda 3, 4th gen for 5. I will miss the camera shot of the cars racing in turn 2. Such an underrated camera shot. Will miss it. I agree. I'm gonna miss the track though. What I loved is when they had the unrestricted, because that's basically, let's be real, they had the tapered spacers, so it was restricted in a sense. Those unrestricted engines flying down that front stretch, and that camera with the speed sign of how fast they were entering into the corner, and it was like 214, 215, 218. That was so badass to see. I'm gonna miss that. I will say my favorite moment of the track was 2013, that badass finish between Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano. That to me is what made Auto Club the track it is now amongst fans. Looking at, let's see, thank you, Napa Racing Fan, and don't worry, if you're a mod, you can remove that channel or that person from the channel. You can hide them. I am completely fine with that. But thank you, Carl Singleton, for the 5. Kyle Busch deserves an appreciation video from you for breaking the record of most consecutive seasons with a Cup points win. Well, we're going to talk about a lot of the stuff going on with this in my video tomorrow. I'm going to be working on that tonight during the Xfinity race because I don't even know if I have Fox 2 personally. But that will be definitely something mentioned. Kyle Busch isn't washed. And I feel like Toyota and Joe Gibbs are going to sorely miss him for a while, especially if the older drivers all leave pretty quick at the same time, depending on how Hamlin, stays healthy, if Truex keeps racing, whether or not, if Bell stays happy, because I don't think he's happy not racing dirt the way that Joe Gibbs would want. That Joe Gibbs racing, I think they're in more trouble than people think. I know I made a video recently about it. I might have to make a follow-up to that. I'm not sure. But I think that they are, personally. Charlie, thank you for the 2. No tire problem. I wonder what track will replace it. I don't know what track will replace it, honestly. That's going to be, I think, the $1 million question. I would think it would be a track that ISC either can lease out and make money off of or own. I would love for it to be Chicagoland, as I think the racing with the next gen would be really good. Another worn-out track, 1.5 miles. Works really well with this car. But I don't think it'll be that. I'm just trying to think of ISC tracks that would maybe Daytona Road Course. That seems to be the backup plan a lot, especially if it was right after Daytona. Pulled in really good ratings the 2 years that it raced in Cup on scheduled points-paying race days. So maybe Daytona Road Course, they could do that. I don't see a Michigan second date personally. I don't think the track's fans can support it in that sense. And NASCAR does want, at least for visuals, to have full tracks. Napa Racing Fan says, I want Chicagoland, but being more realistic, Rockingham, maybe they could work together with that. I don't see North Wilkesboro because it's an SMI track, and ISC is going to want to keep their dates. Maybe Iowa. They're going to have to move stuff around. That's going to be the real question, is how the schedule moves. They might move Sonoma to the date or to the West Coast swing. That way, the summer date opens up for more tracks to be available. Milwaukee, I think that'd be a good one. Throw a bone to those fans that, in all honesty, NASCAR screwed over with Road America. after over 100,000 showed up for 2 straight years. Tell me, outside the Daytona 500, what track draws in over 100,000 spectators 2 years in a row? Just saying. Thank you, G. Thank you for the 5. 2 short tracks in the LA market. Is NASCAR learning nothing from the attendance woes Bristol, Martinsville, and Richmond are having? Maybe. But I mean, they're going to have smaller capacities, I believe. So I think that won't be as much of an issue. I know a lot of people are talking about The Rock. Yes, Chris is right. Nazareth is gone. So anyone bringing up Nazareth? I don't think so. I'm with Napa Racing fan, or I don't think Irwindale's happening from what I've heard. But I've seen crazier things, man. Crazier things. I'd be fine with the Milwaukee Mile. Very unique track, races differently from any other racetrack. So I think that'd be a nice one. As long as we can keep it where the tracks have one day each, so there's schedule diversity, and it's harder on these drivers to really, get up top of it and dominate. Matthew Jones, you said you heard 30,000. That would honestly be the sweet spot. That's about what the Nashville Fairgrounds is looking to get. So I would like that. Max is saying Pikes Peak. I think that'd be good for the Colorado market, and then that middle of the country market. St. Pete. I've heard stuff about St. Pete, but I don't know if there's anything really to confirm with it. But yeah, that is really, I think, the wrap up for it. So remember, this week we have the NASCAR Weekly Podcast on my channel Wednesday night. Be sure to head out to that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Let's keep all this momentum all of us are having up. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel, as I really appreciate it. Leave a like on this stream. We're almost at 250 likes. And thank you guys so much for watching. No stream after the Xfinity race tonight. Gonna be a late night. Got to get a lot of stuff done for this week. But there will be streams after the Truck Xfinity and Cup races, as I believe Las Vegas probably isn't going to be having that big of an issue with rain. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. But yeah, we'll be live a lot this week. It's going to be a fun week, and I think we're going to have a blast. So until next time, I want to say thank you and have a good one.